I never expected a simple sleepover to change everything between us. But that's exactly what happened that night at Jake's house. Let me take you back to where it all began. I'm Alex, just your average high school senior trying to navigate the complicated world of friendships, identity, and those feelings you can't quite put into words. Jake and I had been best friends since freshman year when we were randomly paired as lab partners in biology. For years of inside jokes, video game marathons, and late-night conversations about everything and nothing had cemented our friendship into something I thought I understood completely. Until that night. It was a Friday in late October, that perfect time of year when the air gets crisp and everyone starts wearing hoodies. Jake had invited a small group over since his parents were away for the weekend at some conference. Nothing unusual about that. We did countless gatherings at his place before. There was something different about this invitation, though. Just you this time, he had said casually during lunch. The others are busy, and I've got that new game we've been talking about. My heart did this weird little jump that I immediately tried to ignore. I arrived at Jake's house around 7, backpack stuffed with snacks, a change of clothes, and my toothbrush. His house always felt like a second home to me. A modest 2-story in a quiet neighborhood with family photos lining the staircase and that distinct smell of cinnamon that seemed permanently baked into the walls. Jake greeted me with our usual complicated handshake that had evolved over years of friendship, his brown eyes crinkling at the corners when he smiled. Ready to get absolutely destroyed in Elden Ring? He challenged, already heading toward the basement where his gaming setup waited. The evening unfolded like many before it. We played video games until our thumbs were sore, ordered pizza and demolished it while debating whether pineapple belonged anywhere near a pizza. It doesn't, for the record, and eventually migrated to the living room couch for a horror movie marathon. These were the moments I cherished most, the comfortable silence between comments, the way we could predict each other's reactions, the easy laughter that came from years of friendship. But something felt different that night. I kept catching Jake looking at me when he thought I wasn't paying attention. There was a moment when we both reached for the popcorn at the same time, our hands brushing against each other, and neither of us pulled away immediately. The contact lasted maybe 2 seconds longer than it should have, but it felt significant somehow. I tried to focus on the movie, some generic slasher film where teenagers made terrible decisions, but my mind kept circling back to that brief touch, analyzing it from every angle. As the night wore on and the clock ticked past midnight, our conversation drifted to deeper territory. That's another thing about late-night talks. They have a way of pulling truth from you that daylight conversations never could. We talked about college applications, our fears about drifting apart next year, and eventually, relationships. Jake had dated a few girls over the years, nothing serious. I had gone on exactly 2 dates in my high school career, both awkward affairs that confirmed what I had suspected since middle school but hadn't fully admitted to myself until junior year. I've never told anyone this, I said, staring at the ceiling, the blue light of the TV washing over us in the darkened room, but I don't think I'm into girls. The words hung in the air between us. I had never said it out loud before, not even to myself. My heart hammered against my ribs as I waited for his response. Jake was quiet for so long I thought he might have fallen asleep. Then I felt the couch shift as he turned toward me. I know, he said simply. Or, I guess I wondered. Thanks for telling me. His voice was soft, no judgment in it. Just acceptance. Relief flooded through me, making my eyes sting with unexpected tears. It doesn't change anything, he added. You're still my best friend. We stayed up talking until nearly 3 in the morning. Jake asked questions. When did I know? Was I planning to tell my parents? Had I ever liked someone? And I answered as honestly as I could. There was one question I carefully sidestepped, though. One truth I wasn't ready to share, that the first boy I had ever had feelings for was sitting right next to me. Eventually, exhaustion caught up with us. Jake's basement had a pull-out couch where I usually slept during our sleepovers, but we were both too tired to bother with setting it up. Just crash here, Jake mumbled, already half asleep on the sectional sofa. Plenty of room. And it was one of those massive L-shaped couches that could comfortably seat an entire family. I grabbed a throw blanket from the back of the couch and settled into the opposite corner from Jake, careful to maintain the appropriate distance between us. I fell asleep almost immediately, emotionally drained from the conversation and comfortable in the knowledge that my biggest secret was now shared with the person I trusted most in the world. The last thing I remember was watching Jake's chest rise and fall in the dim light, his face peaceful in sleep, and thinking how lucky I was to have him as a friend. I must have slept deeply because I didn't stir once during the night. No dreams, no restless turning. Just darkness and then, suddenly, awareness. Morning light was filtering through the blinds, casting striped shadows across the living room. I was warm, almost too warm, and as consciousness gradually returned, I realized why. Sometime during the night, we had both shifted positions. I was no longer at the opposite end of the couch, but tucked against Jake's side, his arm draped over my shoulder, my head resting against his chest. My first instinct was to carefully extract myself before he woke up and things got awkward. But as I started to move, I felt his arm tighten slightly around me. And that's when I realized Jake wasn't asleep. His breathing wasn't deep and regular, but controlled, deliberate. He was awake and had been for who knows how long, and he hadn't moved away. I froze, unsure what to do. Should I pretend I was still asleep? Should I acknowledge the situation with a joke to diffuse the tension? My heart was racing so loudly I was certain he could feel it through my t-shirt. Before I could decide on a course of action, Jake spoke, his voice morning rough, but clear. "I was wondering when you'd wake up," he said quietly, and I could feel the vibration of his words against my cheek. "You looked so peaceful, I didn't want to move." I pulled back slightly so I could see his face, expecting to find embarrassment or discomfort. Instead, his expression was open, a small smile playing at the corners of his mouth. His arm remained where it was, a warm weight across my shoulders. "How long have you been awake?" I managed to ask, my voice coming out more strained than I intended. "About half an hour," he replied. "You're kind of a blanket thief, by the way. I was cold, and you were hogging all the warmth." His tone was teasing, offering me an easy explanation for our current position if I wanted to take it. But something in his eyes told me there was more to it than that. A question, maybe, or an invitation. I took a deep breath, gathering courage I didn't know I had. "Is that the only reason?" I asked, heart pounding so hard I felt lightheaded. Jake's smile faltered, replaced by something more serious, more vulnerable. "No," he admitted after a moment. "Not the only reason." The air between us seemed to crackle with unspoken words. I was acutely aware of every point of contact between us, his arm around me, our legs touching, the warmth of his body next to mine. Time seemed to stretch and compress simultaneously, seconds feeling like hours yet passing in a blur. "Last night, when you told me," Jake started, then paused, searching for words. "It made me think about some things I've been avoiding. About myself. About us." He met my eyes directly, and I saw uncertainty there, but also determination. "I've never been good at figuring out what I feel. But I know that this, being here with you like this, feels right in a way I can't explain." My breath caught in my throat. Was he saying what I thought he was saying? I'd imagined this conversation so many times in so many different ways, but now that it was happening, I had no idea how to respond. "You don't have to say anything," Jake continued when I remained silent. "I'm not even sure what I'm trying to say, just that maybe I've been confused about some things, and last night helped me see more clearly." I found my voice at last. "I've liked you for a long time," I admitted, the words rushing out before I could second-guess them. "More than a friend. I never said anything because I was afraid of ruining what we have. Your friendship means everything to me, Jake." His expression softened. "You could never ruin this," he said firmly. "Whatever happens, whatever we figure out, that won't change." "So what are you saying exactly?" I asked, needing clarity, afraid to assume too much or too little. Jake took a deep breath. "I'm saying I want to figure this out. Together. I don't have all the answers about who I am or what I want, but I know that when I woke up this morning and you were there, it felt like the most natural thing in the world." The honesty in his voice was unmistakable. This wasn't a spur-of-the-moment decision or a reaction to my confession. This was something he had been considering, perhaps for longer than even he realized. "I'm scared," I admitted. "What if we try this and it doesn't work? What if it changes everything between us?" "It probably will change things," Jake acknowledged. "But maybe that's not bad. Maybe we've been stuck in this one version of us for so long that we've been afraid to let it evolve into something else." His words resonated with something deep inside me. Wasn't that exactly what I'd been doing? Clinging to our friendship so tightly that I'd been afraid to risk anything more, even when my feelings had grown beyond friendship long ago. "So what do we do now?" I asked, suddenly aware that we were still in the same position, his arm around me, our faces close enough that I could see the different shades of brown in his eyes. Jake smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes and made something in my chest tighten. "Well, for starters, I think we should have breakfast. I'm starving. The moment of tension broke, and we both laughed, the familiar ease of our friendship returning even as something new hummed beneath the surface. We made pancakes together in Jake's kitchen, moving around each other with the comfortable familiarity of years of friendship, yet with a new awareness that made every accidental touch feel significant. We talked about everything and nothing: school, the movie from last night, his parents' upcoming return, but beneath it all was the knowledge that something fundamental had shifted between us. After breakfast, we found ourselves back on the couch, this time sitting closer than we might have before. Jake turned to face me, his expression serious again. "I don't want to rush anything," he said. "I think we should take this slow, figure it out as we go. But I want you to know that this isn't just curiosity or confusion for me. I care about you, Alex, more than I've ever cared about anyone." The sincerity in his voice made my throat tight with emotion. "I care about you too," I replied. "And slow sounds good. We have time." Jake smiled and reached for my hand, interlacing our fingers. It was such a simple gesture, but it felt monumental. A boundary crossed, a new territory entered. We sat like that for a while, not talking, just existing in this new reality we were creating together. Later that day, as I was gathering my things to head home, Jake caught me by the wrist, turning me to face him. "I just want to be clear about something," he said, his expression earnest. "I wasn't asleep, and it wasn't an accident. I want you to know that." I nodded, understanding what he was saying. That moment this morning hadn't been chance or circumstance. It had been a choice, his choice to bridge the gap between us, to acknowledge what had been building for longer than either of us had been willing to admit. "I'm glad you weren't asleep," I told him, and was rewarded with one of his brightest smiles. As I walked home that afternoon, the autumn air crisp around me and the leaves crunching beneath my feet, I felt lighter than I had in years. The future was uncertain. We still had college decisions looming, the complexity of defining our relationship, the questions of coming out to friends and family. But for the first time, these uncertainties didn't feel overwhelming. They felt like possibilities, doors opening rather than closing. That night, my phone lit up with a text from Jake. "Miss you already. Same time next Friday." I smiled as I typed my reply. Wouldn't miss it for anything. In the weeks that followed, we navigated this new territory together, sometimes awkwardly, sometimes with surprising grace. We had our first kiss 2 weeks later, sitting on his bed while studying for a calculus test, a moment so perfect in its imperfection that it still makes me smile to think about it. We told our closest friends after a month, receiving reactions ranging from "finally" to genuine surprise, but all supportive in their own ways. It hasn't always been easy. We've had to have difficult conversations about identity, about the future, about what we want and expect from each other. Jake still sometimes struggles with labels, preferring to say he's Alexsexual rather than defining himself more broadly. I've learned that love isn't always about having all the answers, but about being willing to ask the questions together. That morning, waking up to find his arm around me, turned out to be just the beginning of our story. A turning point that led us here, to a relationship that continues to evolve and grow in ways I never could have imagined. All because of one sleepover, one moment of courage, and the realization that sometimes the greatest risk is not taking one at all. Looking back now, I'm grateful for every moment that led us to that morning. Every video game battle, every late-night conversation, every inside joke that no one else understood. They were all building to something greater than friendship, something we might never have discovered if we hadn't been brave enough to acknowledge what was happening between us. So if you're listening to this and wondering about that friend, that person who makes your heart beat a little faster when they walk into a room, remember this. Sometimes the most important words are the ones that are hardest to say. And sometimes, the arm that finds its way around you in the quiet hours of the morning is trying to tell you something that words can't quite express. Total_char_count, 17,958.